Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Live. It's a beautiful day in Blackstone, Virginia, the center of the earth, but then you too are the center of the earth. We're all the center. We're all the one without a second, but at the same time, we're one of the many. And that's ambiguous, isn't it? Which one? Are you the one or the many? And so let's talk about that. Last night at Martini Time, I talked about moral authority and how that suddenly arises spontaneously when a situation becomes so ambiguous that you can't stand it anymore, and a moral authority, a new authority, a voice rises up. A word, the word rises up. Now in the Bible, talk about God's word. The word, what is the word? The word is a voice spoken with a single authority, that is the one. When the word speaks, it is the one. Like in the movie The King's Speech. He discovered his voice. He discovered his one voice, his Om, his voice, his word. And you see, we're all trying to discover our word, because when we speak our word, we know who we are as we speak. The word is who we are. So when we speak in a forked tongue, when we speak in a hypocritical tongue, when we speak in a divided mind, when we speak in two words that are competing to be the one, we're in a state of ambiguity. We're in a state of moral equivalence or false equivalence. And that's intolerable, because there must be one. Let there be one. In the Bible, God is one without a second. Well, that's about God. No, it's about you. I must discover my one that has no second. Now that doesn't mean I'm an ego and all of you have no status. I'm the one. That's the Trump's finding the one. I'm the one because you're not one. I'm the one because you're outside the pale. You see, that's divine. That's moral equivalency. That's division. No, we're looking for the one that includes, transcends, and includes all the many voices. And that is the function of the president's office, to be the one that includes all the voices of the nation, not just some of the voices, not just a little pocket of the voices, not just my crowd of voices, you see. There's where we get into problems. Anyway, so this morning I wrote a piece on one of my friends here, was talking about Virginia and Robert E. Lee. Because everybody's talking about the outrage of the Confederate statues coming down. And here again, everything that happens in our culture, in our Civil War nation, you see, everything that happens creates a new Civil War. So I wrote about Robert E. Lee, and I thought I would share the ideas I wrote about that. Because Robert E. Lee, the statues of Robert E. Lee is dead. He's gone. The symbol remains. So Robert E. Lee is a symbol for something. What is he a symbol of? Well, he's like, symbols are ambiguous. The ambiguity of Robert E. Lee. Symbols, by their nature, are ambiguous. Symbols have energy. If there's no energy in a symbol, it's not alive. It's just a dead thing, like Alexander the Great. Is there any energy in that? I mean, is there any people go to war? Do people fight over that? No. A symbol must have energy. It must create energy. For what? Conflict. A symbol is alive when it generates an ambiguity, a division, It's like a coin. Okay, here you have a coin. It's a coin. Got, well, that penny doesn't. Take a coin that has heads on one side, tails on the other. Okay, so which is it? If you say the coin is all heads, you're wrong. If you say it's all tails, you're wrong. Which is it? Well, we flip the coin to see which it's going to be. The coin is ambiguous. When we flip it and it comes up heads, we say, the coin is heads. I win because I chose heads. Or it comes up tails, the other side says, I win because it came up tails. Flip it again. Comes up. So we keep flipping to get our side to come up, you see. The coin is ambiguous. So the coin, Robert E. Lee, is like that. You flip Robert E. Lee to see which side comes up. Oh, he was a great patriot. Oh, and I'm not defaming Robert E. Lee. I'm trying to point out the ambiguity here. So one side says he was a great character of valor. He is the epitome of the Southern gentleman, the Southern man, the Southern warrior. Robert E. Lee. When people say that in the South, it's like, oh God, you see. There he is on a horse. He's a symbol of us. But the other people in the same place say he was a slave owner. And he fought to destroy the nation, to divide the nation, and destroy the Union, to divide America into one America and one not America, to kill the dream of America. He was also for his state. How wonderful, how admirable. But Robert E. Lee was a tragic figure. He had a Sophie's choice. He had a catch-22, a lose-lose choice. If he chose to be, he could be a general for either side. If he chose the Union, he would lose his state. If he chose his state, he would lose his country. What an ambiguous place, you see? So he had to choose. So he chose the state. And the irony is that because he was such a great general, he destroyed his state. Go to Virginia. The whole battle, Robert E. Lee and the Army of the Potomac, the Army of Virginia, fought the Army of the Potomac, the Union Army, for 4 years, back and forth, back and forth. If Lee had not been such a great general, the war might have been over in a year. Think of how many people, think of the destruction that happened because of Robert E. Lee's genius. How ironic that is. What a tragic person. What a tragic figure, you see. So there's both sides to Lee. But you can't, I don't know, when I come up with ambiguity, the Janus face, the God with two faces. And that's the power of the symbol. The symbol has two faces. So everybody, you get on the symbol like that. Robert E. Lee is a living symbol. So you take, and all the statues of the generals are kind of like clones of Robert E. Lee. The Southern generals are the heroes of these statues. You see. So it's all in the man on the horse. The Southern general, the man on the horse. Who is like this symbol of valor, Southern courage, the romance of the South. This is a romance, you see. And a romance is all about a heroic figure. A romance is all about archetypes. Robert E. Lee is the archetype of the heroic man. The archetype, you see. It's kind of like these figures trigger a particular heartfelt romance. And then we act it out in reenactments. So the March in Charlottesville was a reenactment. Just like you go out in the fields of Virginia, where the battlefields where Robert E. Lee fought, the Union Army. And every year, every summer, the Civil War reenactors come and follow the script meticulously and wear the clothes that their ancestors wore, down to the underwear. Every single thing must be authentic Civil War. And you have tents where people, I forgot the name of what they, but the tents that will sell Civil War memorabilia and stuff, you see. So there's a whole, and the women, and the whole, it's a whole recreation of a romantic time. The romance of the South. We love it. It gives meaning and purpose, we think. But it's ambiguous. So the marchers in Charlottesville were just basically a reenactment of the Civil War. Times have changed. They didn't wear white sheets. They didn't wear any other clothes, khakis and polo shirts. Everyday man, you see. But they were like a Southern charge, a Southern phalanx, a rebel yell, carrying the battle flag. That's the Confederate flag is the battle flag. They were carrying that flag into battle once more for the lost cause. What a great romance of being a martyr, of being the one who will stand up against Goliath, will stand up against the Union armies, will hold that flag even though he's going to get shot, even though he's going to lose, you see. Oh, that's such a glorious romance, you see. And so we're basically looking at these symbols, these statues, these stone symbols, as a remembrance of a romance, of the heroic figure, the heroic man, which Robert E. Lee is a symbol of, you see. So this ambiguity of Robert E. Lee, when we have ambiguity, we have a positive and a negative. And we have a positive and a negative. And it looks like this. So in our country, we have a civil war of values. So we have the left on the right. The left says, I'm positive, the right's negative. The right says, I'm positive, the left is negative. And it goes back and forth. The media is the battlefield for this reenactment of the Civil War. Because the media, by its nature, gives equal time to each side. They're called talking heads. So if somebody from the right comes up and says this is the truth, they will put next to that somebody from the left who will say this is the truth. So if Fox comes up, so this creates ambiguity. The commandment, there must be one. We can't stand this false equivalency because it looks like wishy-washy. It looks like flip-flop. Remember the Republican campaigns, the Republican strategy against the Democrats, back to Al Gore and Curry and Dukakis and all these failed Democratic presidential campaigns were defeated because they were accused of being flip-flops. Flip-flop, flip-flop, ambiguous. Moral inequity. They had no moral authority. They couldn't speak with one voice. Flip-flop, flip-flop. So the chain of flip-flops were hung around the Democratic presidential campaigns. So the Republican Party has won since Reagan as being the moral authority. They don't flip-flop. It's the other side that flip-flops. So from the Republican side, the left has been the flip-floppers, the divided, the The left has been the cause of the ambiguity and the pain. You see, when you can't choose, when you got two choices and each one is equally right, you can't choose. It's wow, 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 you see. So the nation has been caught in a feedback loop. Wow, 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 wow. And it gets louder and louder, like when you do a microphone in an amp. Like wow, 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 you know. And so it reaches a point where the whole amplifier will explode. You got to turn it off or it'll explode. So this feedback loop in America reaches the point where you have explosions. It has to create the one. You see what I mean? This back and forth increases energy. That's what a feedback loop does. It's this. You see? The snake devouring its own tail, it gets bigger. It's eating its own energy. It gets bigger, but it's going in a circle. And at some point, the energy reaches a point where it cannot go beyond. It explodes. That's what an atomic bomb is. There's no check on the increasing energy until it blows up. When it blows up, it's uncontrollable. The checks are off, you see. So these marches, basically, are an attempt, when you look at it just from this formula, are an attempt to transcend ambiguity and the feedback loop that is intolerable. So it reaches a point where a march will come and say, one voice, my voice, you see. And they come with the intention of blowing the whole thing up. There's an invitation to violence. There's a hope of, and the media does the same thing. So if there is a march, a protest, all the cameras are there waiting for the Big Bang, waiting in expectation for something to trigger the Big Bang. And then all the media comes rushing. And then the talking heads and the left and the right feed on this. Blah, 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 you see. Look at the wide angle. See, the media feel. Now, I'm not blaming the media. This is the conditions we live in. We have to understand the swimming pool we're in. You can't get rid of the media. You're not going to change the way the media works. It's in its nature. So we have to understand it. So the field, you see, it's like we are in this stadium of the viewer behind the TV. In America, now the globe, the whole Western civilization, Barcelona, it's all part of the same field, the media field. The Asia is not really included in this. We don't suddenly go into China and watch a protest in China, if there was one. You see, so it's all the Western civilization. It's in the West that we play in the media field. And so the media field creates this expectation of the rise of some kind of explosion, some kind of an event that will break the stalemate of the feedback loop. So all of these violent eruptions are futile attempts to speak with one voice. So even on the other side, you have Black Lives Matter, and when there's a demonstration, what's the trigger? Well, some policeman shooting without cause a black person. Immediately, there is a rising up of the need for that one voice that will create the moral authority to end the ambiguity. So the alt-right, basically, is trying to become the moral authority that will end the feedback loop that is the Civil War in America. But of course they can't be moral authority because their authority is to divide the world. And that's the problem with Trump. As an office, the president is the one who has the moral authority to transcend the conflict of many voices. You see, that's the function of the president. That's why we need a president. That's why the president was invented. He replaces the king. The king has the moral authority to say, enough of you parliamentary, enough of you nobles squabbling over this and that. I speak with divine authority. This is what we're going to do. So the president, you see, is a secular king. He's the dying and resurrected son. He lives for 4 to 8 years and then he dies as a sacrifice to the office, you see. So that president, that office, must speak with the moral authority to unite all of the voices. But if he just speaks to be the authority for one voice, leaving the other out, all that does is kick the ambiguity and the Civil War down the road. So we keep recreating, reenacting the same division. But the hunger for moral authority grows because it's only with that one voice rising that speaks for all the people that will transcend and end the stalemate. Because as long as America is self-divided against itself, then it's going to be in the backwater of history, just going like kids in the back seat, squabbling. Are we there yet? Or he touched me. No, he's on my side. No, he touched me. He's on my side. Get him off. Get him off. He's on my touch. Wow, wow, wow. While the history is going on, China and Europe, the other countries, India, all these countries are moving on. And we're like kids in the back seat. He did it. No, you did it. No, he did it. No, you did it. Who's the parent here? Who speaks with authority and says, shut up? Who turns the feedback loop off, you see? That's what we want. But the only way we're going to get to it is when we just are sick and tired of the false equivalency. And that's what this turning point and fed up with Trump right now, because he came back and tried to apply false equivalency to Nazis. Finally, Nazis. Who can be for Nazis? Finally, something happened. These conditions created something that everybody can agree is wrong. Finally, the Nazis did us a favor. Finally, the Nazis came out and in an opposite way created a moral authority. Finally, everybody, left and right, up and down, can say Nazis are bad. So in saying Nazis are bad with a unified voice, we transcend the feedback loop. But when we say, well, both sides are bad. Some Nazis are good. There is violence on both sides. False equivalency. Wow, 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 you see. But the authoritarian needs this false equivalency. Why? And this was Trump's strategy. It's worked up until he got to this place, until he got to the presidency. His strategy has always been divide and conquer. So he creates false equivalence. He creates a feedback loop among his staff, among people, among whoever he's dealing with. He creates division, confusion, ambiguity, and then in their frustration they turn to him to solve the problem. So he's like the vacuum cleaner salesman who throws dirt on the floor, and then if you don't let him use his vacuum cleaner, he goes and leaves you with the dirt. Oh, let me clean that up for you. Oh, look at all that dirt. Look at all that sin. Look at all that false equivalence. Look at all that ambiguity. I'll clean it up for you. I'll rescue you from the dirt I created, from the division I created. It's a very successful policy. The Republican Party has been using that. Movement conservatism has been moving their history forward by creating divisions, wedge issues in the nation that they can solve with their moral authority. So one creates moral authority in politics by creating division. So that's been the whole strategy of the right, and it's been very successful. But now Trump has thrown a monkey wrench into it, a Republican presidency who has no moral authority. That is a total destruction of the Republican Party, who have been hungering to have a president with moral authority, who can end the Civil War, like Lincoln. See, so even Trump says Lincoln was great because he transcended the Civil War. But anyway, so thanks for dropping in. And we'll continue to pull this cotton ball apart here and see if we can get a wider angle view on what's happening to our nation. Because if we just focus on the daily events, we miss the mark. If we just focus on today's riot, we don't see the pattern. And if we don't see the pattern, if we don't understand the symbols that trigger us, if we don't understand the symbols that divide us, the ambiguity of the symbols, we are doomed to repeat the Civil War generation after generation after generation. So, thanks for dropping in.